Hello there. Welcome to Mequon Nature Preserve. My name is Jamie. I'm a researcher and an educator here. And as an educator, one of my jobs is to teach people about what an amazing place the preserve is. Right now, we are inside the Pieper Power Education Center off of County Line Road. We actually have 3 different parking lots. We're that big. We are 510 acres of land currently, so we are one of the largest green spaces in southeastern Wisconsin. And within this green space, we have many awesome habitats to explore. We have over 32 acres of mature forest. Mature meaning that these are really tall, old trees, some of them several hundred years old. We have 30 acres of wetland now, lots of different ponds and swamps. And then we have a bunch of prairie. And on top of that, we've planted over 75,000 trees in the last 20 years. That's right, we're still planting stuff here because Mequon Nature Preserve isn't like other nature preserves where everything's already finished. The land that we're working with here was all at one point farmland. All within the last 15 years it was farmland. So we always say at the preserve that we are one big science experiment because we are constantly changing this land, and what we are doing is known as restoration because we are restoring it to what it used to be. Let's take a trip down the hallway to our timeline wall where I can better explain Mequon Nature Preserve's mission. Well, here we are at our timeline wall. It is right down the hallway from the main entrance. I actually got to help build this wall when I was just an intern, and I really do like it. It is a very good visual explanation of MNP's mission here. And our mission here, as I had stated earlier, is to restore a whole bunch of farmland back into its historic natural setting, which would be a mesic hardwood forest. Mesic basically means wet, so wetlands and forests is what this whole area used to be before it was turned into farmland. And when you look at the wall, you'll actually get to see they had put in things known as drain tiles. And drain tiles were these underground pipes that would be placed into the soil, and it would collect all the water that would normally build up to form a pond when it would rain, and it would push it away somewhere else, so it would keep the fields relatively dry. Well, what we do is we basically just go in reverse. We find these drain tiles and we break them up, so that way when lots of water collects in that area, it'll actually stay and form a pond or a wetland. And along with all the prairie plants and trees that we are planting, we hope to one day restore all this farmland back into that historic mesic forest. This isn't going to happen overnight or even in a couple decades. This is our master plan for this is 150 years. So it takes a long time to repair nature all the way. So when we make decisions where we have to destroy habitat for human use, we have to remember that it's going to take a long time to heal that. So we always have to take time into consideration. A bonus about visiting the timeline wall is that it also shares the room with MNP's library. MNP's library is an impressive little collection covering topics all over the natural sciences, from prairies to bird and bug identification, forests, wetlands, you name it. We've got a book for it. Personally, I absolutely love reading. I'm a huge book person, so naturally, you'd think this would be my favorite room, and I do enjoy it, but there's one other place just down the hallway that would have to take the cake as being my favorite place, so let's go down the hall and see it. Welcome to the Hall of Bugs, also known as the Bug Wall. This is an amazing collection where we have almost 300 individual insect species to look at. All the insects on the wall are organized by their order, which is a type of group that closely related animals are put into. There's butterflies, wasps, dragonflies, moths, grasshoppers, beetles, and true bugs. That's right, not all insects are bugs. It's the other way around. All bugs, which are known as true bugs, are considered insects. Not all insects are considered bugs. Virtually all the bugs on this wall were found on Mequon Nature Preserve's property, and I think a couple of them deserve some honorable mentions. One of them would be the giant swallowtail. It is definitely the largest butterfly that you are likely to see on the property, and it's even bigger than some of its cousins, which are also pretty big in their own respect, the eastern tiger swallowtail and the eastern black swallowtail. This species needs to use prickly ash to feed its young, so the caterpillars like to eat the actual plant matter, while the adults like to feed on nectar. Most insects are very specific with the type of food plants they have. A very good example would be our monarch butterflies. You might already know that monarchs need to eat milkweed. Their young eat the milkweed, while the adults, again, will eat nectar from a lot of different flowers, but their young have to eat milkweed. And you might be familiar with the fact that monarchs migrate 1,000+ miles south during the winter. But do you know that there are other insects in Mequon Nature Preserve that actually will migrate pretty far as well? So right here in my hand, I have a green darner dragonfly. Now you're probably wondering, why is this called a green darner? This is all very dark. There's no color to this at all. And actually, if you look at all the dragonflies on here, they're all very dark. They don't really have a lot of color to them. All the ones on this board at one point were greens and reds and yellows and combinations. They all had very, very vivid colors. But dragonflies' colors basically go away once they actually pass away. It's all from biological processes is what their color comes from, all that pigmentation. Butterflies actually have scales on them, so that color stays there. But these ones, since they're mounted, all of their color actually fades away. The green darner dragonfly can migrate up to 900 miles, and some of them will actually, we have two different populations at Mequon Nature Preserve. Some will stay over winter in the ponds. A lot of the dragonflies here during winter, since they live underwater as babies, they will actually stay in the pond all winter. But for some populations of darners, they will actually fly a very, very long distance and migrate themselves. And I just love the green darners and all the darners because they are a very, very large dragonfly. I mean, compared to my hand, look at how big this insect is. This is such a cool specimen. Another large predatory insect right here, these are in our wetlands. These are called giant water bugs. And like I had said before, all bugs are insects, so this is actually considered a bug, which would also make it an insect. And these are some really, really cool hunters. They're ambush predators that live in the water, and they'll eat some pretty big prey. They'll go for anything from fish, like minnows. They'll eat tadpoles. There's a video online of one of these even eating a snake. They are actually a really serious hunter. And if that wasn't cool enough, like most insects, they also have a set of wings, and so they can fly. So if the pond that they're living in ever happens to dry up, which some of the ponds at Mequon Nature Preserve are ephemeral, meaning that at some point during the year they will dry up, they can take off and fly to a new pond. As much as I'd love to just stay here all day and talk about every single insect that's on this wall, there's a lot more of the building, the preserve, and the staff that we have to introduce you to. We'll actually go through and talk about the other live animals that are here and let you get to know the other staff members that work here. But I guess might as well start with me because I'm already here, so I guess we'll do our own little interview right now. Hi, my name is Jamie Schissel. I'm an education and research ecologist at Mequon Nature Preserve. Some of my responsibilities at the preserve are assisting in research and monitoring. So whether we're going out looking for amphibians or any of the bird species, or my personal favorite, any of the odonats, the dragonflies, I get to play a part in gathering that data and working with it. My other big responsibility is basically what you're seeing right now. I'm the head educator here at the moment. Along with Amanda, we would do a lot of in-person field trips. So we'd have schools come from all over to hike the preserve with us, whether we were going through the forests or the wetlands, prairies, looking for birds, bugs, amphibians, whole bunch of different critters, different field trips. Education has gotten a lot more virtual in the last year. And for me, that's okay because that plays to my strengths. I love making videos. And so that's what you're seeing now is basically my new big main task here at the preserve is to teach through a camera. And I'm not the only one that's in these videos. A lot of times I'll pull some staff members aside and ask them if they'd like to take a role in it, and you'll actually get to meet them all in this video. My favorite animal at the preserve would easily be dragonflies. We have hundreds of species in Wisconsin, and we have many, many on the preserve. That actually plays into my role as research and monitoring. I love to go out from April all the way into October looking for different species of dragonflies to call this place home. I like all bugs and insects. I'm kind of the bug guy here. But for me, dragonflies have a special place in my heart because they're just so cool. They're really, really big and they're fast. Being predators, they are very aggressive flyers, and they can do really, really cool aerial shows. I mean, they can fly straight up and backwards like a helicopter because each wing can move separately, so they're just masters of flight. And on top of that, they're a very, very ancient animal. Very, very old. And when you look into those eyes, it's always crazy to think that those same eyes got to look at dinosaurs. They were there before the dinosaurs. They are a very old species, and I have a lot of respect for them. My favorite thing to do here would be either monitoring for the dragonflies, whether we're using really, really long nets, because some of those darners can fly up to 40 miles per hour. As I said, they are very, very fast flyers. Otherwise, I love planting trees. There's something about it when we have these saplings, those tiny little baby trees, when you plant that in the ground, it just always, I never have a bad day when I'm planting trees here. I always just feel really, really good at the end of the day, and it's like you're investing in that future. It's crazy to think that this little thing that I'm holding in my hands one day is gonna be, you know, like what, 60 to 80 feet tall? That's so cool. For me, what makes MNP special is that it's my home. I grew up right next door in the neighborhood, and the fact that we are creating habitat. You know, every other nature preserve is super cool in the sense that they're holding on to that habitat. I love that. But what's cool is we get to watch it in action, because we're not starting with that finished product. We're starting with farm field, and we're turning this a land made for humans, and we're turning it back into a land made mainly for animals that can still be enjoyed by people. I mean, that's what I used to come here for. I'd ride my bike through the woods, go up the tower. And so for me, I consider this place home, and I bet you there's just so many other people that I don't even know about that hike here every day that, you know, it's for them it's the same. This is basically home. I think a really cool place to check out next would be our living classroom right down the hall. But I'm going to first introduce you to Nature Nick, who is our animal expert, and he'll be giving that tour. So we'll go ahead and transition over to him now.
My name is Nick Gall, and I am the Restoration and Research Ecologist at the Mequon Nature Preserve. Some of the main jobs I do at the Mequon Nature Reserve are centered around the restoration work. Usually that involves planting of native species, native trees and flowers and grass species on the preserve to help restore the land, as well as the wildlife research and monitoring. Most of this pertains to some of our bird species, like monitoring for bluebirds and wood ducks, as well as monitoring for some amphibian species like frogs and salamanders, and even some of our fish species that are in our wetlands. My favorite plant species that you can find out on the preserve would have to be the compass plant. It has a very large yellow flower, and also the roots of this species can go down almost 14 feet below the soil. One of my favorite animal species would probably have to be the tiger salamander, which is actually North America's largest land salamander. My favorite thing to do is probably our wetland monitoring, where we throw minnow traps into our restored wetlands. And every day we get to go and look inside those minnow traps to see what types of species are inside, whether that be different types of bugs or fish or amphibians like our salamanders and frogs. What makes Mequon Nature Preserve special is that we are building the habitat for these animal species. We are taking a farm field that was mostly dirt, and we are planting trees, we are planting grass, we are planting flowers that these animals then get to use and get to thrive on and be able to sustain on the property. Say something. While we are building habitat for the animals outside, we also have some of our animals inside. We use these animals for a lot of our educational purposes.
Come on into the live classroom and I'll show you some of them.
So our first animal that we have in the building at the Mequon Nature Preserve in the Education Center is a ornate box turtle. We actually have two of them. They're both females. This is, her name is Fauna. And the ornate box turtle is an endangered species in Wisconsin. They are typically only found in southwest Wisconsin in very sandy climates, and to the southwest of Wisconsin as well, mostly in the prairies. Unlike many turtles that you may find in a lake, these turtles actually spend all of their time on land. But if you look at the bottom of their shell, or this is called their plastron, it's actually hinged. So when she wants to hide from a predator, she can actually close her shell almost completely up so they can't get to any of her head or feet. These are two snakes that we have at the Education Center. In this hand, this is Knots. She is actually a Butler's garter snake. And this is Bitey. Contrary to his name, he seems to not bite too much. This is a common eastern garter snake. So Knots, the Butler's garter snake, is pretty uncommon in Wisconsin. It's actually only found where we live here in southeastern Wisconsin, usually in Ozaukee County and Milwaukee County. So it's pretty rare to see these guys out on the landscape, whereas Bitey, with the common eastern garter snake, can be found relatively all throughout the state of Wisconsin. You might even find them in your yards, along your house, or in your garden as well. And the good thing with snakes is they're actually good to have around in your garden. They're a form of pest control. So as long as you keep your distance, we typically don't want you to hold them. These guys have been in our tank for quite some time, so that's why they're pretty used to being held. But you can keep your distance and just watch them kind of do their thing, and they'll help you out in the garden. One of the amphibians that we have in our education building is a gray tree frog. As you can see here, unlike a lot of our other frog species that you can see, gray tree frogs actually have sticky pads on the bottom of their feet, which allow them to climb and stick to whatever they're climbing to, hence the name tree frog. You can typically find them up in the trees. The gray tree frog is one of 7 frog species that can be found at the Mequon Nature Preserve. And they can also be found typically after some heavy rain events. You can actually find them a lot of times on your house. They'll be attached to your windows or underneath like the roof of your house. One of the cool things about the tree frogs is actually that their little markings on their back are actually all unique to that individual. So if you find more than one tree frog, they're all going to have a little bit different markings on their back, and you can actually tell which frog is which if you were to find multiples on your house or out in the woods. So this is Myrtle. He is a Blandings turtle. This turtle species will not typically be found here at the Mequon Nature Preserve, but it can typically be found in riverine environments, like maybe around like the Milwaukee River. And kind of like the box turtles, this species actually has a hinged shell as well on the bottom. So when he goes into his shell like he's doing right now, he will actually fold up the front of his shell to prevent him from being predated on by other animals. The Blandings turtle is a species of special concern, as most of their habitat along these rivers and lakes that they like to be in is being destroyed due to
people wanting to build houses along those areas.
My name is Corey Gritzmacher, and I'm the Director of Restoration and Operations here at the Mequon Nature Preserve. My responsibilities range a great deal from day to day. A large part of my job entails working with contractors, working on large-scale projects that we take on here at the preserve, whether it's a large-scale drain tile break or a new sign installation, tree planting, and even working with a contractor to redo some of our parking lot. My favorite animal or plant at the preserve would be the sugar maple. The sugar maple is a great tree. It's a Wisconsin native. It's the Wisconsin state tree, and it provides us with that delicious maple syrup. My favorite thing to do here is hike. I love to go hiking, especially when you hike up to the observation tower and you can see for miles around. Is my favorite thing to do. The biggest thing that makes MNP special is that it's free. It's open to everyone and all. And the fact that it's nearby a major metropolitan area, and it's a great community resource for everyone to enjoy. We're here at the base of the observation tower. Let's head on up. We're standing here on top of the 40-foot observation tower, which is located in the middle of the preserve. This is by far my favorite location on the property. You can see for miles around, and you can see recently restored wetlands. You can see mature forests, recently planted trees, and prairies. And even in the distance, you can see our farm. Hey everyone! Some of the really random projects and tasks that we have to do around the property is snow removal. And we're out at the farm here today to clean up some of the snow around our barns, just to keep them accessible during the winter months in case we need to get into equipment or if there's even an emergency. So it's really helpful to keep the snow away from the buildings and accessible year round. All right, here we go.
My name is Amanda Nyman, and I am an education and restoration ecologist. Oh, I do a lot of things here. One of the main things I do here is I help run field trips and other education programs. I also help with restoration, so I work out on the land either planting species of plants and trees or removing plants and trees. Another thing I do here is I do lots of social media, so I run Instagram and Facebook. I also help keep our website up to date, and I write our newsletter that we send out once a month. I really like the woolly bear, which is a caterpillar that we find here, and it turns into the Isabella tiger moth. I really like all the things that we plant here, all the trees and shrubs and other flowers that we plant here. It's really cool to see that we're creating habitat for different kinds of animal species through planting those things. I think what makes MNP so special is that we're returning the land back to what it used to be. So we're creating all this habitat for tons of animals. And through the past few years that I've been here, I've really seen a change in land and seen new species come here and call this place home.
It takes forever to look.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, then do it again. I don't know what you're looking at. Okay, ready and action.
Let's go check out the trails. To all my hikers, bikers, and runners, did you know we've over 5 miles of trails? All our trails are grass, gravel, or mulch and very well maintained. A lot of them lead up to boardwalks. The boardwalks are probably my favorite part of the preserve because you can see all sorts of wildlife. Frogs, dragonflies, butterflies, and all sorts of birds. Make sure you check them out.
Tilia is actually a chocolate lab, and she is the first on-staff conservation dog in the state of Wisconsin to be employed by a nature center. I'm the primary trainer for Tilia here at the Mequon Nature Preserve, and then at the end of the day, she gets to go home with the executive director, Kristen Geese, where she becomes the family dog, and she can enjoy all the love and affection that goes along with being the family pet. Tilia's main focus here is to help us with the restoration of the 444 acres that we oversee here. So one of the things that she can do is help find those invasive plants that are difficult to find or those elusive creatures that are so hard to find, like salamanders. That's one of her primary focuses. She also is a great ambassador for conservation. So one of the ways that we train Tilia is a method called pairing. When we want her to learn a new scent, we use a method called pairing. So we put the sample or the object, whether it's a plant sample or a salamander, in a container with a treat on top of it. And she will eventually connect the two, that the scent that we want her to learn is associated with the treat. Eventually, we take that treat away and see if she continues to recognize that scent that was nearby the treat. And it becomes very self-rewarding. She's very motivated by food and treats in the training process, so it's a great way to keep her motivated by adding new treats to her routine and adding new techniques and new objects to hide things in for her to find. The possibilities for Tilia to learn new scents are endless. So whether it's trying to find a new invasive species, maybe it's a rare beetle, or maybe it's an insect that might be attacking the tree species here in southeastern Wisconsin. She can learn up to about 27 different scents in her library and be able to detect those throughout her career. Working with Tilia is a great joy. I mean, who wouldn't want to spend the day walking out in the wilderness with man's best friend?
Hi, I'm Kristen Geese. I'm the Executive Director here at the Mequon Nature Preserve. Well, my responsibilities at the Mequon Nature Preserve have really evolved. When I started out, I did a little bit of everything, and over time I've grown into the roles of predominantly handling finances, making sure that our revenue is coming in so that we can have that expenses come out. I also I would say my favorite part of my job though is being the dreamer, the visionary, setting the trajectory of where we're going to go and what we're going to accomplish. And then I absolutely love growing my team here, and I think you've had a chance to meet them all. Well, considering I'm a botanist by trade, I have to choose plants, but I really don't know how to choose one. I have several favorites. So here at the Mequon Nature Preserve, we have basswood trees, and the basswood tree is my favorite tree because it's one of the first food sources for the bees. They love to make their honey from the basswood trees, and it tastes kind of minty when you can enjoy that honey. I love that. I also love the leatherwood. When I first started studying here back in 2000, there was one leatherwood shrub in our forest, and it was a really incredible indicator species, saying that this forest was in its primary health. But there was really only one of them. And over the 15 years that I've been on the land, almost 20 years actually that I've been on the land here, we have now a whole understory of these shrubs in the forest, which really means that this forest is being restored to its absolute prime health. My favorite thing to do at the Mequon Nature Preserve is definitely to interact with people. I love watching people come on the land. I love to tell the story. I love to show them where we were and where we're going. Watching the restoration projects are just incredible. It's amazing how quickly you can see the evolution of a landscape. And I absolutely just love the team that I'm working with. They're so inspiring and keep me going every day. Mequon Nature Preserve is incredibly special. It's the largest protected green space in southeastern Wisconsin that is free and open to the public. It's the division of two watershed systems working in harmony to clean our drinking water. And it's one of the very few places on our entire country that is restoring its ecosystems back to what they should be. So we could be this incredible replicable model if we just keep telling people like you all about what we're doing. Together we can really do this, and we can do this across the globe.
And with that pretty much covers all the staff and the indoor scenery that you can see at the preserve. I mean, this video was like a half an hour long, and I feel like I barely scratched the surface. So I highly recommend coming and visiting the place for yourself. We are open 365 days a year, sun up to sundown, and we are 100% free. And make sure to subscribe and keep an eye on our different social media platforms, because we're always creating new content, especially in the future. We're just going to keep putting out more content showing everything that's going on the land, at the building, with community events and whatnot. So we hope to see you there, but even better, we hope to see you out on the land. So this is Jurassic Jamie signing off. We'll see you in the next video.